Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and today I got a sad announcement, and that is that this is officially the last podcast episode. Okay, so I wanted to record this quick video and episode today for a couple things. Number one, announce this will be the last podcast episode. Number two, why? So why am I shutting down something that's brought hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars in revenue into the business? But then thirdly, and maybe most importantly for you, is I'd love to share 7 lessons that I've learned from hosting this podcast over the last few years. Okay, so stick around. I'll cover all of those things today on this final episode. I'll also talk about how you can maybe, possibly help the podcast come back. Okay, so stick around. I'll tell you the details on that. But if you're ready to get your book done this year, if you're committed to publishing your book or selling more books, or if you want to use your book to grow a business, I'd love for you to book a call with the team. The podcast is going away, but we aren't. Selfpublishing.com is thriving, growing, and we'd love to help you with your book. We've published thousands of books over the years. We publish about 2 to 5 books every single day. And yours might be next, or we can help you use that book to grow your business. So go to selfpublishing.com/apply. Book a call with the team. We'd love to help you with that book. All right, now I'm gonna announce why I'm shutting down the podcast and what you can do and all that good stuff later. But I want to dive in with 7 lessons that I've learned from hosting this podcast, hundreds of episodes over the last few years. Okay, so number one, now some of these lessons are business focused, some of these lessons are book focused, maybe a little bit of both. But number one is the power of the podcast. Okay, and that's whether you're hosting or guesting. I think a podcast is the ultimate cheat code to meeting people and doing deals. Okay, I can't tell you how many millions of dollars in deals we've done at selfpublishing.com because I first had someone come on the podcast. Okay, now I've had the privilege to meet, all kinds of crazy, incredible people and just big names have come on this podcast. We've had the best and biggest authors on this show over the years. And so maybe you remember episodes with a Robert Kiyosaki, with a Grant Cardone, with a John Maxwell, with a Gary Chapman. Are you kidding me? Of the 5 Love Languages, one of my favorite books, James Clear, Dan Martell. So many people have come on this show and ended up speaking at Author Advantage Live. We ended up doing a deal together and helping their people publish books. Just incredible. And so the power of the podcast. Now, for most people, I don't recommend hosting your own podcast. It's a lot of work and it's a treadmill to run on. All right. You got to put out content or episodes every single week. But instead, I recommend guesting for most people. Right. So go on a bunch of shows. You end up meeting a bunch of people. You end up bringing in a lot of business. I'll talk about that later. But that's the first lesson learned, is just a podcast is a cheat code to meet the best, brightest, most successful people on the planet. So that's number one. Number two is this concept of a 1-year launch, not a 1-week launch. Okay. And this is something that I saw in common of hundreds of authors that I've had on the show. And you've maybe heard me talk about this in my book published, right? There's a whole chapter on the 1-year launch. The most successful authors that I interviewed, they committed to a 1-year launch, not a 1-week launch. Okay. This is the biggest mistake that I see a lot of authors make, is they pour all of their efforts into one single week, and then they drop it like it's hot, and then you never hear about that book again. All right? It's just buy my book for a week, then nothing, right? And so I've just seen it. A good buddy of mine, Dan Martell, we're going on a snowboarding trip later this week. Great example of this, right? His book, Buy Back Your Time, was published, I think, just over 2 years ago. He is still promoting that book all the time, everywhere, right? So the 1-year launch, not the 1-week launch. Now, if you're thinking about or about to launch a book, take this mindset, or maybe you already made this mistake and so you're thinking it's too late. It's not. Relaunch the book and take a 1-year launch to promote that book and watch your business and your book sales explode. Okay, so that's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, this is a very simple one. So simple that you might ignore it. That's texting people. Right? So this is actually it's a repetitive theme that I saw come up again and again and again. And it's the power of texting. And so many people, they said, I said, hey, what did you do that really moved the needle when it comes to reviews, especially, right? Now, a lot of authors struggle to get reviews. And if you've been around, you've been listening to the show or consuming our content for a while, you know that reviews are one of the most important things. They're the lifeblood of success for any book. And the most common response that I got to how do you get reviews is they just texted every single person in their contacts, or they said, hey, I texted 50 people a day during my launch week, and I just went through my contacts, right? And now texting is incredibly powerful because there's a 90-something% open rate, high response rate, all that stuff. Some of you, maybe it's emails, but really the thing I want to encapsulate here is the power of one-on-one outreach, okay? So if you're struggling to get reviews for your book, or if you're struggling to get, sell more copies of your book, and you haven't texted at least 200 people, you're not trying, all right? Don't complain about it not working. You are not trying. It's as simple as that. Text 20 people a day for the next 20 days or whatever, 10 days, and watch how many more reviews you get. Watch how many more sales that you get. So that's number 3, is the power of the one-on-one outreach, okay? Really, really important. Now, number 4 is the prevalence and effectiveness of podcast tours. Okay, so number 4 is that podcast tours move books. Okay, this is not only the future, but it's the present. So many people, traditional media, this was the kind of the old school book launch playbook. As you go on TV, you did local shows, you try to get on the Today Show, maybe you get on Oprah, if you're the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, and that's how you move books. Well, not any longer, right? Podcasts truly move books. And so if you want to move books, and whether this is Hal Elrod talking about the Miracle Morning and how he did 200-300 podcast interviews over the first year, and then the book just started selling and selling and selling, and it didn't sell at first, right? And so I've seen with myself going on a bunch of other shows, but then also with authors that have been successful coming on my show, is that podcasts move the needle. They sell books and they grow your business. So if you want to move the needle in your business or with your books, go on a podcast tour. Do at least 50 podcast interviews. I did this when I launched the updated and revised version of this book. It moved the needle in a very significant way. All right, so podcast tours move books. That's number 4. Number 5 is you need a hook. All right, and this is really the lesson, is the power of the hook. All right, so whether it's for podcast episodes, for book titles, etc., I've noticed that the most successful podcast interviews that we've published on this show had just a really compelling hook. Grab people, they listen to the episode, and there's kind of some common themes, which is really interesting. But the hook is what moves the needle. Now, same thing with the most successful authors that have been on the show, and the most successful authors that we publish at selfpublishing.com. It's the best titles and the best hooks that truly last. I think about Tony and Elisa DiLorenzo, right? The 6 Pillars of Intimacy. Powerful hook, right? Now, powerful hook plus all these other things that I'm talking about equals that book is sold, I don't even know how many tens of thousands of copies. I think it's like 60,000 copies or something. The book they did with us was more successful than all of the books they published before working with us, right? That's the power of a proven process and the proven marketing lessons and stuff that I talked about, but also the power of a good hook. So you got to have a good hook. And one lesson that I would recommend is, well, actually 2. 1, test your hooks. So get feedback, maybe even pay for ads or do a poll on the best hooks, the best titles, etc. But also, if you're going on any podcast interview, give them 2 or 3 potential hooks to choose from. And this is any podcast interview or any PR on a whole. I can't tell you how many episodes I did where I'm doing my pre-work and my homework and my research and all that stuff, and I'm trying to find the hook. And sometimes I found it, and sometimes it was a really good episode, and sometimes I didn't. And it was an okay episode, but it would have been so much better if I knew the thing to ask this person about. Like, hey, this person's best in the world at this thing, or this is the angle here that's going to really, really resonate with the audience. So now, and actually I've done this for a really long time, anytime I'm requesting PR or podcast interviews, I say, hey, here's 3 potential hooks that I think your audience is going to love. You can pick one of these, or no pressure. You don't have to pick any of these. You know your audience better than I do, but here's 3 that I think will help. Now, guess what happens? I get more yeses, more people bring me on their show, and the episode's better. So I'm doing the work for the host, so they love me and they love that. And then thirdly, most importantly, for me at least, is that the episode goes way better. It moves the needle. It gets more downloads. It sells more books. It truly grows the business, right? So think about hooks in all of the marketing that you do, in your books especially, but also if you're going on a PR tour, give them multiple hooks to choose from. All right, I'm getting fired up here. We're moving on. Number 6. This is another simple one, and you're going to think, this is so simple that you might be tempted not to pay attention or follow it. But what I found is, number 6, the most successful authors think bigger. They think bigger. So the most successful authors on the show, you wouldn't believe the level of thought, planning, and action that goes into these big book launches. I remember talking to Marie Forleo about this. I mean, it's incredible what she did. Right? So what's interesting is most people, they think small, so then they act small, so then their results are small. Right? And maybe you have limiting beliefs around what's possible or, what you can do. And the most successful authors, they just think bigger. Because if you think big, well, then you act big, and then your results are bigger. Right? So no small plans, right? Whether it's with your book or with your business, think big and throw a lot of eggs into this basket. And it might feel like, man, I'm using all this time on this book. I don't know if this is really going to move the needle. But when you do it right, it explodes businesses. I'm talking absolutely explodes businesses. But it takes a lot of thought, planning, intentionality. And you're not going to do that if you don't have a big dream or a big plan for this book. All right, so that's number 6. Number 7, final lesson, is that there's no right way to launch a book, or there's no right way to grow a business. You need to play to your strengths. All right. Now you might be thinking, Chandler, what? Hold up. Surely there's a proven path. Yes. If you read my book Published, or you go back and listen to a bunch of episodes of this show, you're going to discover, or if you work with us, right, you're going to discover, and if you work with us, we're going to help you implement the proven things that move the needle. There's about 10 to 20 of them, right? There's 10 to 20 plays that you can play when you're launching a book. But the truth is, there's no one size fits all plan. You need to pick 2 or 3 of these that best play to your strengths, and then go all in on those 2 to 3 things. Okay. And a lot of times when I'm talking to these big authors before or after the podcast, they say, Chandler, all right, I've got this launch, like, poke some holes in it. What do you think that I need to do? And it would always come down to, hey, what are the 2 or 3 things that are going to disproportionately move the needle that play to your strengths? Okay. If you want to, again, learn more about the menu of options, read my book, or if you want us to help you implement some of these best things, work with us. But don't try to do all 10 or 20 things. Pick 2 or 3 of them and go all in. All right. So there's no right way to launch a book. You need to play to your strengths. All right. So that's it. Those are the 7 lessons I've learned over the last few years hosting this podcast. I hope that this was helpful. Let me walk through a couple of things now. All right. So first off, I want to talk about, why are we shutting down the podcast? I'm going to talk about a way that you can possibly, maybe bring it back. And then I'll talk about I've got a couple freebies for you and some things that might help you with your book and with your business. So why are we shutting down the podcast? So we're going all in on we're going all in on content this year in a major way. Okay. So we're going all in on video content. We're going all in on social content. And the fact of the matter is, I need to buy back some of that time, and I need to play to my strengths. Okay. Now I think I'm a great interviewer, but I think this format isn't the best way to teach some of the things that I want to teach. And so I want to double down on what that is. Now, here's what you can do. If we've got some loyal, raving fans of this show. You guys are incredible. I love you. I appreciate you. Some people have reached out to me and said, Chandler, I've listened to every single episode, which is incredible and is mind blowing. And you are the reason why this show has lasted as long as it has. I mean, there's been many times where I've thought, man, it's a treadmill of content and finding people to interview and prepping. And it's a lot of work to produce this show. And I've thought about giving it up multiple times, but you guys are the reason that we stayed. And so if you want to see this podcast come back, here's what you can do. All right, go leave a review on the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment with what you like about the show and why you want it to continue. Big thumbs up here. What you like about the show, why you want it to continue, and bonus points if you want to include, hey, here's what I'd like to see moving forward, or here's what I think would be helpful format or types of content I'd love to learn on. You can comment that as well. Now, I'm not going to make any guarantees here. This will be based on popular demand. So if you guys love it and there's an overwhelming response to keep the show or bring the show back, then we will bring it back, maybe in a different format. I'm not sure. That'll depend on your feedback. But if not, we'll just sunset it. And don't worry, if you haven't listened to all of the episodes previously, there's a treasure trove. And what I'd recommend is go back over these next few months. Go back and listen to some of the best episodes. I'm talking just crazy successful people that we've had on this show. And they're really, really, really good episodes. So just about anything you could want to learn around launching books, publishing books, using books to grow your business, it's there. No matter the genre, or et cetera, right? So if you want to see the show potentially come back, leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts or leave a comment on this video on the YouTube channel, right? So that's why we're shutting it down. That's what you can do if you want to see it potentially stay or come back. But then secondly, I'd love to give you 2 resources just to help you, right? I'm not trying to abandon you guys who are listening to the show. We've got content coming out all the time. So we publish posts every single month on the selfpublishing.com blog. I hope that you check it out. Recommend it. Gets a ton of traffic. It's really good content. So check out the blog, but there's 2 resources that might be even more helpful for you. Number 1 is a copy of my book. I'd love to give you an audiobook of this book. So all you have to do is go to publishedbook.com/audio, publishedbook.com/audio, no strings attached. You can get a free audio copy of this book. If you're watching or listening to this, chances are you love audio content. That's why you're listening. So you might love the audiobook. It's a really helpful resource. It's A to Z guide. It's going to help you with your book. All right. Now, number 2, the second resource is a one-on-one consultation call with my team. Now, I've covered the cost of this phone call. All you have to do is book a call and then show up for that call. So this will be about 45 minutes where we'll talk about your goals for your book, your dreams, your challenges, and put together a plan. Right? Now, if you're a fit, we'll talk about what it looks like to work together. But this is, in my opinion, is the most helpful 45 minutes you can spend on your book, is getting one-on-one feedback and accountability from my team and from the experts on my team who have helped hundreds and in most cases thousands of people just like you take the next step with their book. Okay, so if that's you, if you're thinking, hey, I'd love to go bigger with my book, I'd love to launch a book, I'd love to use a book to grow my business, maybe that you already even have, book a call with the team. It's going to be really, really helpful. Go to selfpublishing.com/apply. So selfpublishing.com/apply. That's it. The final episode. I hope that you enjoyed this. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to this show. I really, really appreciate it. It means more than you know. If you want to see us bring it back, obviously, leave a comment and leave a review and let us know what you like about it. Why you want it to come back, all that stuff. Otherwise, I'll see you on the flip side. Hopefully we'll be able to work together on your book. Go back into the archives. There's so much great content. So just search on a topic that you're trying to learn more about. Inside of this podcast, I can almost guarantee that we have an episode on it. So search it, find it, listen. I hope that it's helpful, and I will see you on the flip side.